Well, I normally have quite a quiet voice, so I hope it travels. Well, thank you, Jan and Philippa and Tony again for inviting me. I just want to share some of the thoughts from the Commission on Social Determinants of Health. I spoke about some of it yesterday. I'll pick up on some more, particularly to do with the urban environment, and hopefully a bit of that, more of the nexus with the sustainability. And I deliberately titled this "The Concrete Road to Freedom." For those of you that were in the talk yesterday, the idea of thinking about the social determinants, thinking about equity, thinking about people's freedoms and empowerment that's necessary for health equity. And I want to try and keep the idea of freedom running throughout the talk, and I'm sure you understand where it comes from. Picture of Glasgow. I'm even more schizophrenic than Jan commented on. I'm from Scotland, I'm from Glasgow. This is one of the images that I always show. It's from a photography exhibition which is entitled "Witness to Mortality," which I think says it all in terms of what an urban environment can look like and what it can do for health and health equity, and I'll come back to that. So just to remind you that I'm picking up on some of the recommendations and issues that were discussed within the WHO Commission on Social Determinants of Health. This is the report. I think there are some copies outside. Oh, they've gone. But the website is there for those of you that may not have read it already. And what was the Commission about? Apologies, just a slight repetition of this at the end. If we're thinking about what is society, what is a successful society, what does that mean for social human development, then I suppose so much of our approach, certainly the past 20, 30 years, has been thinking about economic growth as an indicator of human development. And what the Commission was trying to do was reframe how we consider development. It's more than economic growth. You know, why on earth do we live? Do we live for economic purposes, or do we live to lead a healthy or a flourishing life? And so thinking economic growth's of course been important, environmental sustainability that I'll come back to, but then down at the bottom the notion of freedoms and empowerment, and that for society, for human development, that we need material resource, we need psychosocial resource, we need control over our lives, and we need voice, political empowerment. And we would argue that the social determinants are the factors that influence those freedoms and empowerment. And that happens, yes, at the individual level, it happens at the community level, and it also happens at the state or the national and regional level. So it's not just about that individual aspect. And if we do consider what's behind the freedoms and empowerment, the social determinants, and we do consider economic growth, and we do consider environmental sustainability, the combination of that in a fair way would arguably lead to good social and human development. And how do we know that we've got successful development? Then we would argue that how health is distributed and how health improves over time is a marker of societal success. So that was the sort of framework that we were operating in within the Commission on Social Determinants of Health. And if I summed up, and what a way of summing up the work that was done within particularly in the urban settings knowledge network of the Commission, we had a whole variety of thematic areas, and one of them was urban settings. And so, striving for sustainable urbanisation, and I'll pick up on a little bit of each of these. Why might we be concerned about the urban environment? We live in a predominantly urban world now. Since 2007 the world has become urban. That varies, of course, in different regions around the world and within different countries, clearly. But you can see how the growth of urbanisation has happened in some of the most populous parts of the world, and that brings with it real challenges. And some of the health challenges, which is probably not of any great new thing to yourselves, but the ongoing existence of communicable, but the new emergence of the non-communicable diseases, particularly in low-income countries where infrastructure is just not set up to deal with some of these conditions. And you can read there. But this is what emerged from the global literature as some of the current and new future challenges for health and health equity. I'll pick up on some. Before I go into this, when we did start the work of the Commission and when we started to talk about some of the inequities, people said, okay, so you're going to be talking about low and middle income countries only. And if you were to look at some of these figures, you would think, well, there are just some disgraceful differences in health, whether you're looking between urban and rural, whether you're looking at what's happening within the rural areas, and when you start to look into some of the slum areas, to do this under 5 mortality, then yes, it's a huge problem in some low and middle income countries. But it's also, hopefully I have some figures in a minute that illustrate the point that these inequities are also a high income country problem as well, and I'm sure you have that situation here in New Zealand. With the emergence of obesity and the associated health conditions that have gone with that, and again people said, no, this is only, it's a problem of affluent countries. It certainly is not. It's a problem in pretty much most countries, except for the poorest countries in the world. Overweight and obesity are very serious issues. You can see some of the figures here. I thought I had a slide across the Asia Pacific. I'm sure how that varies in terms of overweight and obesity across the Asia Pacific. So, and it starts in the urban environment. I'll come on to some of the food system issues, the city food system issues, but we know that around the world the obesity epidemic starts in the cities and then it rolls out. And it has very significant consequences, not obesity of course, but diabetes. You can see the prevalence in China. This is changing very rapidly sort of as we speak, and it's a city, it is a city problem still within China. And if you think about, again, the volume of population that we're talking about, for the health system to be able to respond to some of these issues, whether at the national or at that local level, then and you've got that sort of prevalence of emerging health conditions, it's a very serious challenge, particularly when you start to put the equity dimension across it. And the road traffic deaths, we were talking this morning about some transport issues within cities. And one of the things, of course, the consequences of this explosion of urban living has been the change in transport systems and the consequent impact on traffic-related deaths. You can see some of the Latin American countries, Middle Eastern, Northern Africa, some of those, and then the high-income countries, the part down at the bottom where we've had some real improvements. We've done some really good policy interventions, the seatbelt being one of them. The people that are dying in the Latin American countries and some of the Asian countries are the pedestrians, because the setup of the streetscape is not set up for the explosion of the number of cars. So different issues, but it's how you deal with that from a transport policy perspective we come on to. And of course, being from Glasgow, I always show this slide of within city differences. So the under 5 mortality in some of the areas in Kenya, the urban, high income and slum, truly disgraceful. When you start to look also within high income countries and high income country cities, Glasgow, reasonably affluent city by and large, and we have those sorts of differences in life expectancy. Why on earth does that continue to exist?